Hi, this is Kevin Trainer, and welcome to the tutorial for our first coding assignment. And our first coding assignment is called Model, and it's timed for us having covered the first three chapters of the Pinkham book, at which point we should be able to create uh, uh, the model for a Django project. I've organized this as a tutorial over the course of um, all of the assignments. What I'd like to do is to give you part of the solution and have you come up with the other part. Sometimes as much as give you half, have you come up with half. But my experience in using our tool set for the model part is that it's kind of thorny working with incomplete models. And so I've decided to do this assignment as a complete kind of a follow the leader. So your goal here is to follow along with me. And if you can, for instance, put the video up on another monitor while you follow along, it'll be a great way to do it. Okay. What's our goal for this Django application that we're going to build? Well, it's going to be an implementation of the Easy University application based on the Easy University database. So it's a database that has to do with students registering for courses and instructors teaching courses. So it's kind of university record keeping. It's called Easy because it's unrealistically simple. So at some point we might make it more robust and complex, but this gives us just enough data to worry about and just enough opportunity in the short run to exercise the Django features that we want to practice at. Okay, so what I have here is the logical database designed for the database that our app is going to be based upon. And here are the entities or the tables that are part of our design. And there are five main tables. There's the student, of course, and the instructor. And then there is the semester and the course and the section. And the section is the thing that holds it all together. So in this semester, I'm teaching this at UWM. So if I was teaching a section of Intro to Systems Analysis, it would be, I might have a section 001 and a section 201, which would be online. And it would be a section of course, Infos 340, which is our systems analysis course. So that would be the course. The semester would be, I guess, spring 2018. And let's say it's section 001. And section 001 would have well, let's say it has two instructors. It's got the main instructor, me, and it has a TA instructor as well. And let's see, if this was an on-campus course, we'd probably have 36 students. So the relationships in the database are as follows. Every section has one and only one semester, so there's a one-to-many between semester and section. Every section is for one and only one course. So there's a one-to-many between course and section. And then between a section and instructor, there's a many-to-many. So one section can have many instructors, each instructor can have many sections. And the same with the students. So each section can have many students, and each student can be enrolled in many sections. And the way that we implement many-to-many relationships in relational databases is with an associative table, or when you're talking about the data model, an associative entity. And so that's what section instructor and section student are. Okay, they are the associative tables that implement the many-to-many relationships between, in one case, section and instructor, and in the other case, section and student. What is interesting is that those two associative tables are kind of hidden in their details that are kind of hidden from us in the code that we put into Django. So it's important to see them explicitly here because a proper relational database has to have them. So I'm going to put this aside and start to put together our project. Okay, and some of these things I've already kind of shown you how to do, but it's not going to hurt. It's not going to hurt for me to show us doing them for our project. We're going to create the real project that I create on for me is called EZ_university. Well, I already have that done, right? And so I don't want two projects of the same name. So the project that I'm gonna do for you, I'm gonna call Easy University Tutorial. But when you create yours, just call it Easy University. Okay. You're only going to create one version of it. So let's look at Anaconda environments. I have one for Easy University, but I don't have one for the tutorial. And just so I can be explicit about what it should be, I'm going to create it from scratch. So like these other ones, I'm going to say E4, environment 4, underscore easy underscore university. And then I'm going to add on the tutorial so I can keep these things from conflicting with each other. So I click on that, and it's going to gen up a virtual environment for us. And here it is. And you probably remember that we have to install Django explicitly. So let's go to the list of not installed, and let's search for Django, D-J-A-N-G-O, and there it is. Okay, and we're going to click it here to say we want to include it, and just click apply. And it's finding Django version 1.11.8. That's great. So we're going to apply again. And we're going to watch it finish up installing the packages associated with Django. And now we have everything that we want. So we just have to remember that E4 Easy University tutorial. Okay, that sounds good. Let's close this guy. So now I'm going to go to PyCharm and create a project for it. And let's see, that's coming up on my other monitor. It's always a challenge when you have a lot of monitors. Okay, so here's my PyCharm. So I want to create a new project. It's a Django project. And I don't want it to be called Untitled 1. I want it to be called Easy underscore University underscore tutorial. Okay. And now I need to go down here and provide some interpreter details so that I'm working with my proper virtual environment. So I've already created it, so it's existing. It's not this one. So let's go over to the right and click on the wheel. Add local. And okay, we have to point to the one we want. So on the left here, it's a Conda environment. And then on the top right, let's click on the 3-dot button. Okay. And I'm looking for my environment in Mac OS. So I'm going to go to my user ID. And under that, I'm going to look for the folder Anaconda 3. There it is there. And the environments are in envs. And we want to find the N for E for Easy University Tutorial. Open that. And then we want to go to bin and open that. And then we want to find the file that is an alias for the proper Python interpreter. And that's always called Python. Okay, this is a shortcut that points to the real interpreter, which is Python 3.6. So, okay, here. Come up again, okay again. And now we're going to click on Create. And unfortunately, it brought it up on another monitor for me. So we'll pull this guy down. Easy University Tutorial. That looks good. All right, and give ourselves a little more room to work, I guess. Okay, so here's the project. Not a whole lot of files. Okay, so what can we do? Well, let's go up and let's well, first of all, let's run the terminal. Okay. And when we run terminal, we're in the right directory, but we're not in our proper conda env. So let's type in conda env list, and here's a list of the conda environments I have. And I want to activate E4 Easy University Tutorial. And on Mac, I say source activate E4 Easy University Tutorial. And you guys on Windows, get your cheat sheet out. I think instead of source, you say conda. Okay, and there we are. And let's do an ls so we can see our directories, or I guess you do a dir if you were in Windows. And so we have Easy University Tutorial. That's part of our project. Manage.py and templates, they're all part of our project. Okay, good. And then the other thing that we were going to want to do, let's go up to Tools and pick Run Manage PyTask. It's going to open that for us. And here we are in manage.py. And the first thing we need to do is we need to create an app. Okay, all code inside of a well, not all code, but all code associated with apps goes inside of an app. And I've come up with a name for our app called Course Info. Um, is it a great name? No, but I've used it before. Um, so we're going to have to start an app in order to build the infrastructure for the app. So within Manage Pi, we want to type in Start App, and I take the autocomplete and call it Course Info. And there we go. We've got Course Info. All right, so that's arrived. That's looking good. We have a lot of stuff there, including models. So we open up models, and here's where the classes are going to go that implement our models. Okay, so just take a peek again here at our logical database design. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to keep this up while I'm working that you can see, but I'm going to pull it up on my other monitor and keep my eye on that. Okay. So I want to show you a sort of a trick, but a necessity of how we're going to declare these things. Each of the tables that we have, all the proper tables, is going to be a model class that we're going to create in this models package, or module, whatever you want to call it. And that's the proper tables are semester, section, course, instructor, student. The two associative tables are not going to be declared on their own as model classes, but they're going to be a line. They're going to turn out to be under the section class, so that's fine. What order do they go in? Well, it matters what order. Python being an interpretive language, you can't point at things that are below you in the code. So, for instance, when we declare, when we write the code for section, it's going to have to point at semester and course and instructor and student. So it turns out that we have to put the code for section last. Okay, and that's just the way of the world here. Okay, so let's get started. All right. Again, kind of modeling after stuff that Pinkham did in his chapter 3. We're going to come into models.py, get rid of the comment, and between the imports and the first class, we typically want 2 blank lines. So we're going to say class, and we're going to do semester here. And in parens, we're going to have the name of the superclass that semester is a subclass of. So in the models package, there's a class called model that's the superclass. Oop, we need a colon at the end there. Okay, so each model, which corresponds to a table, is going to be represented by a class, and that class is a subclass of the model class. So we're not going to put the details in just yet. Let's identify all the classes we're doing. So first, semester, and then let's say let's do this the lazy way. Okay, so we're going to take 2 blank lines in that, and we've got 5 tables all together. So let's come down here and paste it 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. That looks pretty good. Looks like we have 2 blank lines. We've got 3 up here. Well, they're not all called semester, so what are they called? Well, semester, course. Okay. Instructor, student. And last, because it has to point to everything above it, section. Okay. So that is pretty fast. All right, that looks good. So now we've identified the model classes. Now we have to start to fill them in. So let's do semester first. Okay. So this pass is just a placeholder that keeps the interpreter from complaining that this code block is empty. Because if I take that off, it's going to complain. That's going to say my code is broken on models there. Whereas if I go back and I put that in, it's not broken anymore. It doesn't do anything with the passes in there, but it doesn't have any active errors. So let's go to semester, okay, and get rid of the pass placeholder code. And I'm going to say that the first field for this is called semester ID. Okay? And this is, we're going to do an assignment here. And from the models package, we're going to use the auto field class. And we're using the name of that class because we're calling it constructor, and we can pass it some configuration parameters. And in fact, we're going to say, no, this is a primary key. So we're going to use the named parameter, primary key, and give it the value true. Okay. Now, this isn't what Pinkham did. What he did is that he allowed the Django infrastructure to generate a primary key called just ID for each of his models, and that's kind of the default treatment. But then you don't wind up with things with the right name in the database, which I don't like. So semester ID's good. Semester name is next. What's the name of the semester? Well, like fall 2017. So models, and this is a char field. It's a character field. Character fields, we have to say how long they are. In this case, this is going to be a variable length field. So we're going to say max length equals 45. And also, because this is a lookup table, we don't want 2 semesters with the same name. So we're going to say it has to be unique. So we're going to say unique equals true. Okay? That's the whole table there. Now we're going to add some other stuff later, some further properties for this semester class. But those properties are going to be for our Django form editor. Okay, and so now I'm only going to have you define the ones that we need to get the database going. Okay, and not the ones we need to support the form editor. So you can kind of recognize the difference. So let's go on to course. Okay, and course is going to be very similar. Course ID. And this is these primary key fields work well as an auto field. It's an integer field that's can't be null, has to be unique, acts like a primary key. Okay, and also has auto incrementing. So you insert the first one, you get 1, and then 2, and then 3. It works really well for these primary key fields. So we're going to say the same thing here that we did before. We're going to say auto field primary key equals true. And the next field, so the class has a field, and it corresponds to a column on the relational database that's going to be generated from this. So the next one is course number. Okay. And in Milwaukee, that would be something like Infost 340. That would be the number of the course. So we're going to say models, care field again. And we're going to say that the length is, the max length is 20. Because I don't think we're going to need anything longer than that. And we're saying that these need to be unique. Unique equal true. And that's somewhat problematic in a real university, but this is easy university. And we're going to need a course name. Course name. And at Milwaukee, this would be something like, if it was Infost 340 was a course number, it would be Introduction to Systems Analysis. So models, care field, and sometimes these are quite long, and I'm going to be kind of generous. I'm going to allow mine to be as long as these varchar fields can be. So I'm going to allow mine to be up to 255. Okay. So I think what you should take away from here is that we're using classes to hold to correspond to tables. So the semester class is going to be the sort of internal representation of the relational database semester table, and then we have these fields, and the fields are instance variables. Okay, so every instance of the semester has a semester ID and a semester name, and those each instance of the semester or class is going to correspond to a row in the semester table, which will have the columns semester ID and semester name. Okay, so these map pretty directly onto constructs from relational databases. Okay, so let's do instructor. Okay, so we're going to have an instructor ID. And that's going to be, again, a models auto field. And primary key equal true. Okay. And then our instructor is going to have a first name and a last name. Pretty straightforward, right? So instructor name. No, sorry. It's just going to be first name and last name. We're not going to prefix it with instructor. That's a matter of style. So first name equals, and then models, it's going to be a char field again. And we're going to say it's going to be a variable length up to 45. So max length 45. With names, it's not really practical to say that they need to be unique in the table, so we're not going to do that. And we're just going to have a last name. Okay, and we're just going to copy the code. It's going to be another char field that's 45 characters long. Okay, up to. All right, that's the whole thing. That's all we need right now from the instructor. Okay, and then the student is going to be a lot like the instructor. So being the lazy cuss that I am, I'm just going to copy the fields that I described for the instructor, and I'm going to change them just a little bit here. So it's not going to be the instructor ID, it's going to be the student ID. Okay, that's good. The first name and the last name are good, and if you remember in our logical database design, we said we also had a nickname. Oh, sorry. Nickname. This is so we can keep track of what people actually call themselves professionally. Okay, we don't want nicknames like a killer and the weasel, but we do want Fred instead of Frederick, and things like that. Okay, so we've done pretty much all the easy ones now. Now the last one that we're going to do is section. We've got too many blank lines. You always want to separate these classes by 2 blank lines. Okay, and what I'm going to do now, okay, is I think I've gone a long time without committing my work to the repository. So this is all saved. Okay, and how am I going to get a repository for this? Well, first of all, I'm going to find my PyCharm projects, which are right here. And I've got Easy University tutorial, that's good. And now I'm going to open up the source tree application. And I should be able to just pull the directory that holds this project onto source tree, and it'll create a repository for me. So it's calling it Easy University Tutorial. That looks good. It's a Git type. I also want a remote repository, so I say yeah, and I click on Create, and it wants to know which account it wants to use, and I have a common account I use for all my courseware. That's my Lite account, not my one associated with either of the universities where I teach, so I'm going to put it there. And that looks good. It already has my password and all that for that, so I create. And there we go, right there. All right. Now, as long as I'm here, let's double click on this, and we have a lot of content that's not under version control. Okay. Well, let's take care of that. All right. So all this stuff can be under version control. That looks fine. So let's select all of those. Okay. And let's say this is our initial commit. Okay. That's good. All right. Now, I just want to point out that I don't want everything under version control. So how could I keep that from happening? Well, let me show you how you can do that. In my Django Girls project, okay, I have a git ignore file. Okay, it's hidden. I've done the things in my copy of the operating system to tell it to show hidden files. And I did that by Googling that question, and there was some code to run at the terminal. And it's kind of sticky. It's going to stay that way till I change it back. So I just want to copy the same git ignore file that I was using in the Django Girls tutorial. And I want to copy this down and paste it on top of Easy University tutorial. Just paste it right there. And you'll see that it's going to ignore the same things. Like it's not going to put the database under version control. It's not going to put the bytecode that the interpreter generates from the Python source code. It's not going to put that under version control. There's a standard list, and the one that they use for Django Girls is not a bad one. So that's that's good. Okay, so let's go back and take a look at this, because git ignore should be under version control. So why don't we just say, put this under version control. Okay. And I'm going to push these out to the remote repository, which it's calling origin. And I'm going to say, put git ignore under version control. Okay. And commit that. Okay. So typically when you're working on projects, I want you to put them under version control. When you make a mistake, it's a lot easier to back up. And of course, if you lost your laptop or it failed in some way, you'd be in much better shape. Okay, so there we are. If we come into PyCharm and we want to look at its version control things, we can come into VCS, the operations a pop-up, which is a control V here. If I say I want to commit, it's going to tell me that there isn't anything to commit. So there's this VCS XML, but we're not going to worry about that right now. That's part of the PyCharm project. Okay. Could we do that? Yeah, we could. We will eventually. Okay. Do we want to put that under version control? Sure, we'll put that one under version control. Yeah. Okay. So now we're down to the last part, the section table, and this is the only one with some real razzle dazzle. Okay, so it starts out the same way with an ID field. So section ID equals models auto field, primary key equals true. That's good. And what's the next thing we get? Well, now we get a section name. Now, up at Milwaukee, the section name is really a number, so it's like 001, right? But where I teach at the University of Illinois, the section name is typically letters, at least at the iSchool. So I decided it wasn't going to be section number because of that. It was going to be section name. So section name, which again is a char field, models char field, and the max I said was going to be 10 characters long, and that's more than we're going to need. Sorry, I wanted max length equals 10. Okay, typically there are only 3 letters or 3 numbers there, but you never know. Sometimes we're gonna need more. Okay, so that gets us the section ID and the section name. Now, what we need to do is we need to find a way to represent the relationships. So I'm just going to bring back our design so you can see it here. Okay. So you can see that here, in terms of the way the diagram worked, we explicitly show that there's a semester ID foreign key field that points to the semester, and a course ID foreign key field that points to the course. And then we have the many-to-many here, so we don't really show any any more columns on here. So it's going to turn out that we're going to put 4 fields onto the bottom of the section class. And there are 4 fields that represent the 4 connections or relationships that a section can have to semester, to course, to instructors, and to students. So let me show you how that goes. All right. So even though the field, the column name in the database is going to be, if we're pointing at semester, it's going to be semester ID. We call our field semester. Okay? And we say semester equals, and of course we're taking the classes from models, and there's actually one for foreign key. So foreign key, oh, I don't know how that happened. Let's back up a bit. Now, little magic there with the keyboard. Foreign key, F-O-R, so foreign key, there's that. All right, and okay, what are we pointing at? Well, we're pointing at semester. Okay, so we'd put the name of that class there. That's good, a comma. And it turns out we want a name that can be used on the semester, on instances of the semester class, that can be used there to point back at the sections. And so there's a named parameter called related name equals, and we give it a character string, semesters. Now why is semester. I'm sorry. It's been a long day. It's sections. Okay, and why is that? Well, because on semester there's going to be access to a field called sections that is going to point back across the relationship, and you're going to see all the sections. Okay, so that's going to be the name of the point back field. Now, why didn't we declare that when we declared the semester class? That's just the mechanics of how they decided to do it when they built Django. Put all the information in one spot, so that even though we're only declaring the relationship in one direction, because of this field that's going to be added to semester, it can be navigated in both directions like a typical relational database. Okay, so what's the next thing? Well, now we need to point at the course. Okay, so we only point at one course. Instead of course ID, we say course. And models, foreign key, point at what? Course. Does it have a related name? Yeah, you know what? Typically they're all the same. All the things that point back at this are going to be called sections, because section is on the many side of these relationship, and so when you point back at it, you're going to have a collection of them that you're pointing at, and the proper name is going to be sections. So the fact that on these other classes there are going to be fields available to point back, and they're all going to be named the same thing, well, they're all going to be pointing in the same direction, so that makes sense. So we got the semester in the course, Okay. Now, we need to point to the instructors. Okay, instructors. Okay, now why is that plural? Well, it's plural because this is a many-to-many relationship. So we're not going to have just a single pointer. We're going to have a collection of them. So we can say instructors equals, and of course we're going to use a class in models, and it's called many-to-many field. Okay. And okay, what are we pointing to? Now we're going to give it the name of the real table we're pointing to. Okay. So in this case, we're going to be pointing to instructor. Okay. Interestingly, this section instructor table that implements the relationship in the real relational database in the outside world, this is hidden from us inside the Django model. So we're pointing at instructor. Okay? That's the thing to know. So many-to-many field, instructor. Okay. It has a related name. And again, all these things that point back to a section are going to be called sections. Because it's many-to-many, it's going to be pointing back to many of these. And now we're going to want one for students. And students is going to be just the parallel. So models, many-to-many field. It points across at student, and it has a related name, sections. So what's interesting about these related names is that all four of these cause a field to be added to the other class. At least it's accessible through our coding when we access that. And we'll be able to use the name sections to point back at the sections across the relationship in the other direction. Okay? That's very important to us to be able to navigate both ways. All right? So that is it. Now, again, are we eventually going to add more code to these model classes? Yeah, we are. Because right now, we just have the code that we need to make the external relational database happen and the mapping between this internal data model and the external data. Okay? Later on, we're going to add additional things that help our form editing capabilities in Django. Okay. So when we finish our model, here's what we've got. We've got everything here. All right. So what are we going to do? Well, we need to do a migration. Okay. So what we need to do is we need Django to take this data model, and to turn it into code that's going to work with a real relational database. And also it needs to produce the schema, the SQL statements that are going to be used to define the relational database. So let's make migration. Okay, make migrations. Okay, and it's going to go through. Oh, hold on, I have to hit enter again. And it said no changes were detected. Okay, and offhand, let's look at the migrations we have up here. We don't have any migrations files here, but we do have a DB SQLite 3. Let's get rid of this, okay? Because the migration is going to create one for us. So I'm going to delete that. I thought it was pretty suspicious. It said it didn't have to do any work to do the migration. I think I might have had an old copy hanging around here. So I'm going to get rid of the database. Okay. So now I'm just going to say it again. Make migrations. Okay. Well, let's migrate. Okay. Does that look right? Oh, guess what we didn't do? We forgot to add, I get stuck on this all the time. We forgot to tell it that course info was one of our applications. And so it didn't really do the migration for that. Oh, how do we do that? Well, we're going to do that by going down in here, Easy University Tutorial, and into Settings. And we are going to tell it, oh, by the way, in addition to all these apps that are kind of built in, we want to have course info added right there. And it's good practice to put a comma after that. So we're going to save this. Now let's go down here and say we want to make a migration. Make migrations. That's better. So it looks like it's creating all of these things that we want. Okay. And then let's do a migrate. Okay. And it looks like apply all migrations. Looks okay. Looks all right. So that looks good too. So now I'm going to introduce another tool. Okay, so what's that tool? This is a tool that I use. It's a client for SQLite 3. So it's called SQLite Studio. It's free. Okay. Do you have to use it? No, you don't. Okay. Here's what it looks like. Where would you find it? Well, you just would do a search for SQLite Studio, and you would find out that there are versions of it for Mac, Windows, and Linux. Okay. And you would run the install and you would open it up and you would be right here. So then how can we use this to look at our database? Well, let's right click in the navigation panel and on the database say add a database. It's SQLite 3, that's a type, that's fine. Under file, let's click on the folder. And this is my projects are under PyCharm projects, and mine is called Easy University Tutorial. And I need to find my way down to my database, db.sqlite3. So click on Open. All right, now it needs a name. Well, I'm going to call mine Easy University Tutorial DB. It looks good. Okay. Probably could have tested the connection, but it's going to work just fine. Anyway, now if I double click on this, you'll see all the tables. Now, a bunch of these tables are the built-in tables that come with Django. Things like authorization and users and logs and all those things. But look at these tables here. The course, the instructor, the section, the semester, and the student, they all have what we expected, but there's course info underscore appended to the front. So the table names are always the name of the app appended to the proper name of the table. Now we could defeat that if we wanted to, but it has some good features that allow us to mix apps in the same database without clobbering tables. So we're going to leave those as they are. The other thing to see is that the two associative tables, section instructors and section students, they are they're already created for us. Okay, so even though we didn't ask for those tables explicitly, we need the tables in order to make them work in a proper relational database. So let's just take a look. If we click on, for instance, on section, if we double click on that, we can see the definition that went into the schema. So section ID, section name, course ID, semester ID. I don't know what they're doing there. That's interesting. I'll be right back. I want to check that out. I'm back. I disoriented myself. I didn't want to click on section first. So let's click on semester first. This is pretty clear. So we have the semester ID and the semester name. That's good. Let's look at course. Double click on that. Course ID, course number, course name. That's good. Let's look at instructor. Instructor ID, first name, last name. Very good. Student, first name, last name, nickname. Those are all good. All right. Let's go ahead and look at section. Okay. Now, what's interesting about section, okay, is that we have the section name, and then we have the two foreign keys, course ID and semester. Now, what's interesting is even though we called our field course, it knew that this was going to be called course ID because it is going to match the primary key name on the course table, and the same with semester. Had we been foolish enough to call this field in our Django model course ID, then the column here becomes called course ID, which is not what we want. Okay, so these all work just fine. Okay. Let's just take a look at another issue. Okay. The other issue is, did we take care of which fields have to be unique? And let's just look at this. Semester name and course number have to be unique. Instructor and student, no. Section number, no. Okay, so let's go back to our SQLite Studio, and let's look at semester. And you can see that semester name has to be unique. And if we look at course, we can see that course number has to be unique. So with just those properties that we put into the model, we're able to do a migration, make a migration, and then migrate. And the result is a database schema that really has all the rules in it that we need to get the job done. Will we add further properties? Yeah, we'll add some further properties, but not right yet. The rest of the properties are going to be for adding, are going to be supporting the capabilities of the form editor. All right? All right, good. I'm going to pause for a second and we'll be right back. Okay, so let's take a look at what this would look like if we ran it in the development server. Okay. Oh, by the way, we're not quite ready for that. You know what we haven't done? We haven't created a user that we're going to be able to use. So let's, within manage.py, let's create a super user. And let's do our standard one. Let's say our username is going to be test user. Okay, our email address is going to be an email address for me. You can use one for you. And the one that we're using these days is SOIS, SOIS secret. And then we put it in SOIS secret. Okay. Because we don't want a secret password in this case. We want to be able to log in and remember it. Okay, so that's fine. So let's run the development server. So run server. Run the development server. Okay. And it didn't find any problems. It performed checks on the system, so it liked what we had. So let's click on the link for the browser, and we'll come up here, and it didn't find any problems. That's good. Now, what we would like to be able to do is we would like to be able to use the admin function. Okay, so we're going to add that onto the end of the URL. We'd like to be able to use that in order to manipulate the data model. Okay, this isn't what Pinkham did in his Chapter 3 tutorial, but it's what the Django girls did, and it's a pretty common way to do it, and it's much more tangible. So we're going to say test user, and we're going to say SOIS secret. Okay, and I just want to point out that because we haven't told Django enough information about these administrative apps and the fact that we want to use them in order to do form-based data entry and editing on our data model. Because we haven't given enough information, we just don't have the things that we'd like to see down here. What we'd like to see is that the course info app has these tables associated with them that we can manipulate. Now, we can see this authentication and authorization application. So, for instance, we can look at users, and we can see that there is a test user. Okay, and we can put the rest of our stuff in here. But so that's fine. We would like this kind of functionality for the data model that we created. Well, we don't have quite enough there yet. So we need to put a little more code in, and I'm going to walk you through that, and then we can come back and do some further testing and then some development as we go along. Okay, so where are we going to put this code? Where we're going to put a lot of the code in admin.py under course info. So if we go there now, there's not much there. Okay. So what do I need to add? Well, for each of these parts of the data model, for each of the model classes, we need to add a line that says this is how we're going to get this done. Okay, so we're going to say we want to register the semester class with the administrative site. Well, what's wrong with semester? Well, we need an import. Okay, well, how could we do that? Well, we could add an import. And we could say from dot models import, and we could say semester, and then let's decide the other one, section, course, instructor, and student. Okay. And I'm just going to copy from some other code that I have. I'm just going to register all these guys right here. All right, that looks good. That's a start. All right, so we have the admin stuff. Now, we also need to go to settings. Okay. And let's go to settings. We already have that one open. Settings, and you notice that we added course info here. We need to point it to the following: EZ University Tutorial .apps .mysiteconfig. Okay. And of course we need another comma there because we added that one in there. Okay, so we've got that. Okay, so we're coming along. And then we have to go down under this, and we need to add under Easy University, we need to create another file. So we need a new Python file, and it's called apps, A-P-P-S. Okay. Do I want to put it under version control? Sure. Put it under version control. Apps.py. And so what do I want to do? Well, so my imports from Django apps. Import app config. Okay, and this is what we did in the Django Girls tutorials. And then I have a couple of blank lines. So we're going to say class mysiteconfig, because that's the name that we use, and it's an app config, so it's a subclass of the superclass app config. Okay, and then we want to give it one instance variable name equals, and we want to say Easy University Tutorial. All right. Well, that's a lot of plumbing, right? Well, that just takes all of the plumbing to get those administrative apps working, so that we can get what we want. Okay, so I like to hit a save, which on the Mac I do is a Command S to make sure that we have this working, that we save the code to the server. And let's click on the link again. And it says that Safari can't connect to the server. And that doesn't look good. So let's stop that server with the red X. Okay. Did we stop that? No, didn't stop the first time, but it stopped the second time. And let's go up to Tools, Run, Manage By, and say Run Server. And let's see if we do have a problem. We might have a problem. No, that looked okay. And then we're going to click here. It worked. Okay, so I don't know what wasn't working before, but we got it to work now. And now, of course, we want to go to admin. And we're going to log in again. Oh, we're already logged in because the logins are sticky unless you make other arrangements. And here, look what we have. We have courses, instructors, sections, semesters, students. Okay. Now, what order do we want to put in some data? Well, the way relational databases work, the last thing that we want to put in are the sections because they point at other tables. And if we don't have the rows there, it's not going to work. So why don't we start this? Let's have a course. Add a course. And let's say it's systems analysis in Milwaukee. So Infost 340. And the course name is Introduction to Systems Analysis. Okay, save that. Now, what's interesting here is, did we get what we wanted? Well, I was hoping we would see Infost 340 here instead of Course Object. Well, if we click on Course Object, that's the one that we wanted. What's our problem? Well, our problem is that Django, the class that we created in the model, it doesn't have a way to properly create a string to represent this object. So it just says it's a course object. Well, let's us go and add the code that we're going to need to make that work. So let's go to models. Okay. And let's find a course. Okay, shouldn't be too hard to do. And in course, okay, let's add a string. Let's add a string method that looks like this. If we're going to add a method, we just want to skip one line. And what does this look like? I copied it so we could go a little faster. Okay, so this is the string method. Okay, it's got these dundered underscored because it's one of the special methods, okay, that we typically don't call explicitly, we call them implicitly. And what do? Well, we are returning self course number. That makes sense, okay, because that's what we want. And what's going on up here? Well, what's going on up here is that we're saying use this kind of formatting clause to format the course number to create the string that we return. Okay, and we're just saying, well, it's just going to be the string itself, course number. So why don't we save this? And why don't we go back to our browser? Okay, and go back to admin. Okay, let's go to courses. Isn't this pretty now? So now this course object, which came from the course class, when the Django infrastructure would like to display it, it's got a pretty name for it. So these string methods we're going to add to each of our. We're going to add these to each of our classes in order to get them to print out the way we want instead of course object, semester object. So let's just do that again. Let's go back. You can go to there's breadcrumbs up here. So let's go to course info and let's take a look at semester. And again, we want to add one. And the semester name is the only attribute. So let's call it Spring 2018. Okay, and save it. And again, it doesn't get a pretty name. So, what kind of a name could we give it? Well, we could pretty much give it something that looks like what we did for course name. So we're going to shrink this, and we're going to go back to semester. And again, we skip one line in between this class and its methods. And we're going to paste in code that I had from before. And it's the same kind of structure, except that we are returning the semester name. And it's the same kind of formatting string. Okay, so I'm going to save this with Command S. Okay, and I'm going to go back to my browser. Let's go back to my browser. Okay, and I'm only going to have to refresh. And look at that semester looking very pretty. It's spring 2018. Isn't that nice? Right? So pretty cool stuff. All right. Now, let's go a little bit farther. Okay. What could we do for, let's add a person. Okay. So let's add an instructor. We don't have anything fancy with instructors because there are no optional fields like nickname. Okay, so first name Kevin, last name Trainer. Okay, and we can say save and add another. Okay, and let's say that the TA for one of my courses, her name is Jane Scholar. So Jane Scholar. Okay, we have her. So let's go. Okay, so we have an instructor object, an instructor object. Okay, we've got two of them. Well, that's not nice. We have to add a string method in order to get a pretty name. So let's go do that. So that's for instructor, right? There's our instructor. Now I'm going to show you a string method that's a little more complicated than the one we used on the last two. Okay, we have the same declaration header. Okay, but this time we're using more than one of the fields. Okay, so the formatting string, every string that we want to bring over, this works for strings here. So we're going to say string, comma, space, string, and we're going to populate that with the last name for the first one and the first name for the last one. So again, let's do save. And again, there should be two lines between the classes. So let's get another line there. So I'm going to do a Command S to make sure we're saved. And I'm going to come back to my browser. And I'm going to say, okay, let's refresh this page. And there we are. So we've got Scholar Jane and Trainer Kevin. That's pretty good. All right, well, let's make the same kind of changes. Let's go back to course info. Let's try to make it with students. Okay, so we're going to add a student. And let's, the first of our students is going to be Fizza. Fizza Smith. It's her married name. Okay. And Fizza doesn't have a nickname. Okay. So why don't I save this? Ooh, it doesn't like that. I doesn't like that. Well, because it thinks this is a required field. Okay. So the database was kind of okay with it not being a required field. We could put a null there to say there isn't a nickname. But our form editor doesn't like this at all. So how do we handle this? Well, it turns out that there's a way to handle this. Okay? And the way to handle this is the following. We can add a further annotation on the nickname. We add 2 further annotations. Okay, and I'm going to copy these and paste them. So let's go down to student. So the nickname, we have enough for the database itself, but let's add 2 more pieces of metadata. We're saying when we say blank equal true, you can go, okay, that field can be blank. And we're going to say the default is the empty string. So this turns out to be a Django good practice that they recommend. They say don't put, if you have a field that doesn't have a value, like a middle name or a nickname, don't put a null in it. Put an empty string in it, and then say that it's able to be blank. Okay, so that's how we're going to do it. So let's save this, and let's come down to our browser, and we're just going to have to refresh. Oh, yeah, we're going to have to send it again. And it didn't care now. So we have a student object called FEB2018, okay, and that's fine. And let's add another student, and let's have Joseph Jones. Okay. But he goes by his middle name, which is actually Adam, because his father's name is also Joseph. Okay. So here we can say save, and it's fine. All right. So looks like that creating a string for this is going to be a little more challenging. Okay. Maybe what we could do would be something like this. So let's try some possible code. Okay. So let's come over here. And so we want to add a string method to this. So let's just give it a header. Okay. And what could we say? Well, what if we returned a everything including the nickname? I mean, this is sort of an interesting thing to do. Okay, so let's say return. Okay, and we do something like this. So we've got 3 strings. We've got the last name, the first name, and a nickname. Okay, and let's see what that's going to look like. Okay, so let's give that a save. Okay, well, that's not too bad. Let's go down and look at our browser again. Oh, and here we are. The student objects should, if we refresh, they should have a proper name. And they do. So we've got Jones, Joseph Adam. Adam is his nickname. That looks good. I like it like that. But with Mrs. Smith, it's sort of a problem that she just has these empty parentheses. I don't really want to see these here. So how can I fix this? Well, it turns out that when you really think of this as being real Python, it's like, oh, of course I can do this. Like, for instance, here's what I'm going to say we can do. We can just put code in on the basis of whether the nickname is equal to the empty string. So what could we do? Well, I could do it kind of quick and dirty, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you my full version. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to suggest the following code. This. Okay? So I say we have a kind of a working variable that we call result, and we give it the empty string to begin. And if the nickname is the empty string, well, then we just put together a two-part name. Else, we put together a three-part name. And then we return the result. So, why don't we save this? Okay. And let's go to our browser. Okay, that looks good. And we want to see this empty paren disappear. So let's refresh. It disappeared. So now we can have a nickname or not, and the names that are showing up in the form handling application are appropriate. So now we're doing pretty well. Okay. So what else do we need to put in? We've got semesters. Do we have semesters? Yeah, that looks good. And we've got students. We have instructors. Do we have courses? Info's 340. I think that looks good. All right. Let's get a little bit. Let's get a little bit more. Okay. Now, let's go down to section. Okay, so let's see how this goes. Now, let's put a section in. Okay, so what have we got? So let's say this is section 001 of Info's 340. For what semester? Well, we can pick by name. Isn't that nice? Otherwise, it would have just said semester object. That wouldn't work. Course, well, Info's 340. That works. The instructors, let's say this one's being talked by Jane Scholar. Okay. And then the students, let's give them both of the students. So we highlight one, and then we hit the shift, and then the other. And now we're going to click on save. Okay. So now we have a section object. Okay, that's not too helpful at all. Because we don't know what course, what section, we don't even know what semester. Okay. So here's what I'm going to say that we should do. Okay. I'm going to say that we should go back and put together a string. And I could play this out a while, but I think that what we really need is we need a string for this that has enough information that we can tell the difference between, because we have to know what semester, what course, what section we're dealing with, or else we're going to pick the wrong one potentially. So there's a string method that we can add. That's pretty straightforward. So we're going to have we're going to have a string hyphen string parentheses string. And what's going to be, it's going to be course number hyphen course name, section name, and then in parentheses the name of the semester. All right, that looks good. So let's save that. All right, and let's go back to our browser and refresh. Oh, and it did not like that. The object has no attribute course number. Okay, well, let's go look at that. It didn't like that. That didn't look good at all. Let's go figure out what I did wrong. Oh. So guess what? We want this to be not semester ID semester name, but semester name. That should work. There's been a change in the application since the last time we saw it. So let's go back and see if that still works. Yeah, that does work. Okay, so interestingly, we seem to have two that are the same. That's not good. That's not good at all. Let's see if we can get rid of one. Well, let's look at them both. We got this one here. Okay, and let's go back and look at the second one. Looks like we've got a duplicate. Okay, so let's delete it. Delete it? Yes, I'm sure. So we're back to only one of these, and that's good. So why did that code work? Well, what's kind of tricky about this code is that we're on the section, okay? So the course number is not on the section, which is the self, but we have to say, we have to go down and look at the course field, which is pointing at another object, and we want to get the course number from that. We do have a section name, so it's self.section name, but the semester name is on the semester. So we have to say self.semester.semester name. Okay, so the only thing we're pulling off of the current object is the section name, and then we're using the relationships to go get the course number and the semester name. Okay, and here's where you're finally kind of earning your keep as a programmer. Okay, and then just to go back to what we get because of that, we get a proper course number, we get a proper semester name, and we get a proper section name. Okay, so let's try to add a section. Let's try to add another section. Okay. And let's say this is going to be Infost 110. Okay, the semester is going to be the same. the course. No, I'm sorry. This is the section name. Okay. A section name is going to be like 001. Okay. The course, well, we don't have the course yet, so let's add the course. This is going to be Infos 110. So I got another window to pop up on another monitor, but that came up. So course number is going to be Infos 110. And the name is going to be Introduction to Information Science. And we're going to save that. And that's pretty slick because we don't have to go to another part to enter it. That's very nice about this Django administrative form editor. So that's going to be taught by Kevin Trainer. And say for right now, we're just going to have Adam Jones in it. So we're going to save that and come back. And what's interesting is that these are in the right order now, but only accidentally. Okay. The fact is that they can get out of order. And we want them to be in a certain order. Okay, so let's go back to something else. Let's go back to course info and let's go to like instructors. So we've got Scholar Jane, Trainer Kevin, and let's add another instructor. And the first name is Bill, and the last name is Zeus. And let's add that. Okay, and you see that Zeus, Bill, just got added to the top of the list. We just add to the top of the list. And it's not in alphabetical order. Now, Scholar and Trainer wound up in the right order because of the way that we entered them. The new ones are just going on the top. And that's what happened with our sections. The new ones just go on the top. Well, how can we get things to be in the proper order? Well, in the same sense that relational databases, the external relational database, didn't need to have that string function added in order to properly store the data, well, it doesn't need any information about ordering of the data for itself, because relational database is the order of the rows is pretty much undefined. It depends upon the implementation of relational databases that you're using. But for instance, in a very popular one called PostgreSQL, the order of rows is indeterminate. You can do a query and get one order back and run it again and get another order back. And so what I tell people in my database course is always use the order by clause in your SQL. Well, so what's happening here is it's coming back in a determinate order, which is kind of nice. That's probably a feature of SQLite 3, okay? But it's not coming back in the right order. So what we need to do is we need to define an order for each of these model classes. So let's do an easy one first, okay? So here we're currently on instructor. So let's go to instructor, and instead of adding a method this time, we add an internal class. Well, that's exciting because probably you haven't created internal classes yourself. This is just how the Python infrastructure works. So for instructor, we're going to skip a line, just one line, and we're going to use this indentation, and we're going to add an internal class called meta. It has a capital N because it's an internal class. We use the same class name as an internal class to all of these, and it can have its own instance variables, and one of them is called ordering. And what we do is we give it a list of the names of the fields and the order that they should be in. So this says, well, this should be in last name, first name order. And as you can see, this is a list of strings. Okay? And why is it a list of strings? Well, that's how they designed it. So if we add this code and save it, okay, so we're adding a internal class called meta with an ordering field or attribute. Now we can come back to our instructor kind of index page, and let's refresh it. And now it's in the right order. Scholar first, trainer second, Zeus third. Okay, let's do the same for students. Okay, so let's go to our student page, students, and we have Jones before Smith. So let's do the same thing here. Let's have first name Anna, last name Wilson, no nickname, and she ends up at the top. Well, that's not what we want. Well, we can do a very similar thing here. Do we need to consider the nickname? No, I wouldn't. So I'm just going to go, and I'm going to go down to student, and we've got a pretty fancy string method. But let's just go down to student, and let's just, we can really use the same code we just used up for the internal meta class in for instructor. As you can see, the ordering is last name, first name. So again, because we're using a development server, all we need to do is to save, and the server will refresh its internal copy of the application. Development servers work like that. Production servers don't. Okay, so let's again, we have refreshed the application. Let's go refresh the page, and there we are, Jones, Smith, and Wilson. So that's going pretty well. What do we have left to get the ordering right on? So let's do semesters. Okay, that one's pretty easy. So semester, we've got spring 2018. Okay, let's add, let's say that these are going to be in alphabetical order. So summer 2018. Okay, so when we add that, it's in the wrong order. We would expect summer to come after spring if they're going to be in alphabetical order. So we could do the same thing. So let's just go back to our model class and find semester. And I think that's up at the top. Yeah, there it is. And let's add an internal class for that. So let's put in hang on a second. Let's come down here and let's just copy this. Because I didn't have one on my already baked model, so I don't know what I thought I was doing. Okay, so we've got this. So last name and first name don't make any sense, but semester name would make a lot of sense. So oddly enough, if you've only got one field, you say semester name, like that. Okay, and I'll put it in the right order. Okay, so again, we want to save this. So we're saving it. And just go back to the browser and refresh the page. And we have the spring before the summer. So again, if we wanted to have these in a better order, having to do with how these things fall, because the fall is going to come up first, and maybe we don't want it first. I don't know. We'd have to do some quick thinking about how that worked. But here we're just putting these in alphabetical order, and that's fine. So we're in good shape here. All right. So what's left? Courses. Courses are just accidentally in the right order here. So let's add one that should come after it. So let's add my old Infost 780 course, XML for libraries. Okay, and add that, and that's going out of order too. So we've got to do the same thing for this. Shouldn't be too hard to do. Let's just take this this internal meta class we had for semester, and let's just add it down to course. And of course we have to change the name. It's not semester name here. This should be in the order of course number, I would say. Okay. So let's put it in order of course number. Okay. And that's going pretty well. Okay, so let's save that and come back down and do a refresh. And now it's in the right order. So course number 110, 340, 780. Okay, so the only thing that is challenging is sections. And I'm going to show you how to do that, and then I think we're going to be done. Okay, so let's look at what we have here. We added a second section, but it didn't go in the proper order. So let's add one that should go at the bottom. Okay, let's add a section. Let's say it's section 001. The semester is summer, so it should definitely go at the bottom. The course is just Infost 110. I'm the teacher. Smith and Wilson are the students. Okay, and let's come down and save it. And it went up at the top, and we wanted it to be at the bottom because we want to order by semester, and then by course number, and then by section number. Okay, so how could we come up with some expression that does that? Well, I'm just going to show you my pre-cooked version of that. So down here for section, what did I do? Well, it's not too hard. Not sure I like what I have in my pre-cooked version. We'll see. Okay, so this needs to be tabbed out. So let's put this class back here. So let's see, course number, semester name. So we're going to have course number, section name, semester name. Okay. So I decided it was going to be easiest to find it by course number and section, and then look to see the proper semester. So maybe I have it in the right order. I don't know. Now, what's interesting here, up until now, the ordering, we were using values that come from the current object. So we're on the section. For instance, if you want the section name, you just put section name. Well, what if you wanted to reach over to a related object and pull a piece of data off of that? Well, instead of having a dot, okay, we have a double underscore, a dunder. So if we want to get the course number off of the object that's pointed to by course, we say course dunder course number instead of course dot course number. Why is it? Well, that's the way they build it. And if we want to get the semester name off of semester, well, we use the field that points to it, semester, and then dunder semester name. Okay, so let's save that. Okay, we're going to do that. And let's just go back and show that we can get these in the right order. So 110. Spring should come before summer. So we've got summer before spring in the 110s. So let's refresh. And now we have the spring before the summer. So they're in the order of course number, section name, and then within that semester ID. Okay? So just to go back here, we're done for now, but and of course you can add all the data that you want. But at this point, what we have is a we have a models.py that includes the first set of code, which is what we needed to have to get the database to work. And then we needed to add the string method and then the meta internal class in order to get proper name formatting for the form editor, and then a proper ordering of the list for the form editor as well. And so these two things, the string method and the meta class, the meta internal class, are not part of what we need to communicate with the external relational database. They're what we need for the Django form editor. And even though we're using the admin version of the Django form editor right now, instead of some kind of customized version that we'll use later on, these are considerations that are going to be important even for the customized version. So we've done a lot of the work that we're going to need to do. Where do you go from here? Well, among other things, you want to take this and make sure that you commit your code and you push it up to your remote repository. So I'm just going to say complete coding of models.py and test with admin form entry facility. Okay, and I commit that. That's all my stuff. So what's left to do? Well, what's left to do is to deploy this on Python anywhere. Okay, so up until now, you've had the Django stuff out there. All right, and you're just going to follow the deployment instructions on the first of the Django Girls tutorials. But instead of deploying from the repository that has the Django Girls code, you're going to deploy from the one that has your easy university code. Now, you're going to run one application on Python anywhere, so you're probably going to want to make sure that you're kind of late in the week before you take down the deployment that you have of the Django Girls code, so I get time to grade it before you put up the new code. So this deployment should be like the very last thing that you do. You probably want to do it on like the final weekend of the time that we have to do it. And if we have any crossing of what version is up when, well, then I'll find a way to coordinate it with you. So have fun with this. It's really tangible and fun, and I hope you enjoy it. Bye for now.